Imagine this. You wake at 3 a.m. to the sound of your own voice whispering from the hallway. Not a dream. Your lips move in sync with the words you hear. The voice is calm, almost amused, reciting a line you've never heard before. To think like them is to see the abyss, and the abyss sees you back. Your body locks. You know this isn't sleep paralysis. This is something older. History whispers of similar moments. Philosophers who vanished mid-sentence, their final journals filled with frantic diagrams of eyes in the walls. Schopenhauer wrote of a veil torn by pure thought, behind which the mind's own horrors gestate. Nietzsche, in his last lucid letter, begged a friend to burn his unpublished notes, calling them keys to doors that should stay shut. What if thinking like the great philosophers doesn't elevate you, but exposes you? What if their genius wasn't just insight, but a warning? You shuffle toward the hallway. The voice stops. The air smells of wet ink, like old pages left in the dark. A single sentence is etched into the wallpaper, jagged as if clawed. You asked for their wisdom. Now they're here to teach you. And then silence. Not the absence of sound, the kind of silence that listens back. This is where the lesson begins. The voice in the dark wasn't yours. It never is. Carl Jung called it the shadow, the part of the mind that watches, learns, and waits. He warned that those who dig too deep into their own thoughts risk falling into the well of the unconscious, where things that were never human stir in the dark. But what if the shadow isn't just personal? What if it's collective? A buried layer of the human psyche where the great philosophers, in their relentless pursuit of truth, left something behind. Nietzsche wrote of the abyss gazing back. Schopenhauer spoke of the will, a blind, hungry force beneath reality, shaping human desire like a puppeteer. Sartre called consciousness a gap in being, a void that wants to be filled, and sometimes it is. History remembers the philosophers who went mad. Pascal, screaming at visions in the walls. Hölderlin, spending decades in a tower, whispering to unseen visitors. But what if their madness wasn't a breakdown, but a breakthrough, a glimpse into the real nature of thought itself? Because thinking like them isn't just about logic or reason, it's about seeing, peering past the illusions that keep us sane. And once you see, it sees you too. The voice in your hallway wasn't a hallucination, it was an invitation. And now that you've heard it, the door won't stay shut for long. You find the notebook the next morning. It wasn't there before. Bound in cracked leather, its pages smell of burnt hair and wet soil. Inside, handwritten passages, some in Latin, some in a cipher that shouldn't make sense, yet somehow does. The mind is not a sanctuary, it is a battleground. History remembers the philosophers who disappeared, but not how they vanished. Descartes was found in a locked room, his face frozen in a scream, fingers worn to bone from scratching equations into the floorboards. Kierkegaard's last journal entry simply read, "It followed me home from the graveyard of ideas." This is the cost of true thought. Neuroscience confirms it. Deep contemplation rewires the brain, dissolving the boundaries between self and other. fMRI scans of monks in deep meditation show something unsettling. At the peak of enlightenment, the brain doesn't light up, it goes dark, as if the thinker has stepped outside their own mind and something else has stepped in. Why do you think genius and madness are twins? Why do the greatest insights feel alive, as if they were whispered into the thinker's ear? Because sometimes they are. The notebook's last legible page holds a single sentence, underlined in what looks like rust. Every thought is a prayer. Be careful who answers. And then the whispers start again. Not in the hallway now, but inside your skull, in a voice that is almost familiar. The whispers are getting louder. You try to focus, to think your way out, but that's the trap, isn't it? The more you struggle to understand, the tighter the noose becomes. Like Wittgenstein said, The limits of my language mean the limits of my world. And right now, your world is closing in, but there is another way. History's survivors, the ones who glimpsed the abyss but didn't fall, all did the same thing. They stopped, not thinking, not analyzing, not trying to solve the unsolvable. The Zen masters called it no mind. The mystics called it surrender. The philosophers, they rarely spoke of it at all, because to admit its power would unravel everything they built. But you're past philosophy now. You're in the place where words fail. So you sit, you breathe. You let the whispers come. Let them scream. Let them claw at the walls of your skull, and you do nothing. And then, a miracle silence. Not the listening kind, not the hungry kind, just silence. The notebook crumbles to dust in your hands. The voice that wasn't yours fades to a memory. For the first time in weeks, you sleep without dreaming. The silence is worse than the whispers ever were. Your hands are steady now. The notebook's ashes sit cold in the trash. You tell yourself you've won, but in the quiet hours, when the world sleeps and the mind turns inward, you feel it, a new weight behind your eyes, a pressure like fingers pressing gently against the inside of your skull. The philosophers never warned you about this part, because the final horror isn't madness, it's clarity. That crystalline moment when you realize every thought you've ever had was rehearsed first by dead men, every insight borrowed from graves, every moment of genius just an echo. Jung called it the collective unconscious. But what? If it's not a well of wisdom, what if it's a feeding ground? A place where ideas don't blossom, they hatch. You catch yourself humming a tune you've never heard. Your handwriting changes when you're tired. There are words in your dreams that don't exist in any language, yet you understand them perfectly. The most terrifying part? You're starting to prefer it this way. The thoughts come smoother now, richer, like wine aged centuries in dark cellars. You solve problems that baffled you for years. People call you brilliant. They don't see the faint smile that wasn't yours that flickers when you're alone in mirrors. Because here's the truth. No philosopher dared write down, enlightenment isn't illumination, it's colonization. The moment you open the door, even to peek, something slipped in, and it's been rearranging the furniture ever since, not replacing you, just improving you. You used to wonder why Nietzsche signed his last letters, the crucified. Now you know, some realizations don't set you free. They nail you in place, a perfect specimen for study. The last page of the notebook, the one you thought, crumbled to dust. You found it this morning in your own handwriting, just one line, fresh ink gleaming. We're going to do such wonderful things together, and the worst part, you're looking forward to it.